is a place in the Red Sea where the water can be so clear that you can see the seabed from above, where coral reefs surround tiny islands, where sea turtles move through shallow waters, where fishermen still follow traditions that have survived for generations, and where ancient ruins tell the story of a time when these islands were part of major trading networks linking Africa, Arabia, and Asia. This place is the Dahlak Archipelago, off the coast of Eritrea. The Dahlak Islands stretch across the Red Sea like scattered jewels. More than 200 islands and islets make up the archipelago, although Eritrean sources use broad accounts when referring to the country's entire offshore islands. Some are inhabited. Many are tiny and isolated. Some are little more than coral and sand surrounded by deep blue water. And despite their extraordinary natural beauty and history, the Dahlak Islands remain one of the lesser-known island destinations of the Red Sea. So what makes these islands so special? What happened here centuries ago? Who lives on these remote islands? And why has this extraordinary corner of Eritrea remained relatively untouched? This is the story of the Dahlak Islands. The Dahlak Archipelago lies in the southern Red Sea, just off Eritrea's coast. The main gateway to the islands is the historic port city of Marsawa. From there, boats head eastward into a world that looks dramatically different from Eritrea's mountainous interior. The archipelago is made up primarily of low-lying coral islands and islets. The largest island is Dahlak Kabir, literally, Greater Dahlak. It is also one of the most historically important islands in the group. The islands are surrounded by shallow waters, coral reefs and seagrass habitats. And their isolation has helped preserve landscapes that have experienced far less development than many other Red Sea destinations. There are no huge resort cities here, no endless lines of hotels, no enormous coastal developments. Instead, there are beaches, coral reefs, fishing communities, archaeological remains and vast stretches of open sea. It is precisely this combination of isolation and natural beauty that makes Dahlak so fascinating. The real treasure of Dahlak may not be on the islands at all. It is beneath the water. Eritrea's Red Sea coast contains extensive coral reefs, mangroves and seagrass habitats. And the waters around the Dahlak Archipelago support a remarkable variety of marine life. Coral reefs provide shelter and feeding grounds for fish and other marine organisms. Seagrass beds are particularly important. They provide food for marine animals including green sea turtles and dugongs. Eritrean marine researchers have identified significant seagrass beds around several Dahlak islands, including Nora and D Hill. The islands are also associated with marine turtles, including green and hawksbill turtles. These animals depend on healthy coastal ecosystems for feeding, nesting, and reproduction. And then there are the reefs themselves. Beneath the surface, the Red Sea becomes a completely different world. Brilliant coral formations, schools of fish, rocky underwater landscapes, and narrow channels between islands. For divers and snorkelers, this is perhaps the side of Dahlak that is hardest to forget. But there is another reason these waters matter. They are not simply beautiful. They are an ecosystem supporting the livelihoods of coastal communities. Fishing, shellfish, sea cucumbers, and historically, pearls. The sea has always been part of life here. For centuries, the Dahlak Islands were associated with one of the Red Sea's most famous natural treasures, pearls. Pearl fishing became an important part of the island's history and economy. The location of the archipelago also made it useful to merchants and sailors moving through the Red Sea. The islands were not isolated from the wider world. Quite the opposite. Their position placed them near one of the most important maritime corridors connecting Africa, Arabia, and the wider Indian Ocean world. Dahlak's history also includes the movement of people, ideas, religions, and goods across the Red Sea. Islam became deeply established in the islands, and archaeological remains preserve evidence of centuries of Muslim history. But pearls were only one part of the story. The islands also became an important stopping point for ships seeking water. And that leads us to one of Dahlak's most remarkable features: water wells. Imagine arriving on an extremely dry island in the Red Sea and discovering hundreds of ancient wells and cisterns carved into hard coral rock. On Dahlak Kabir, these structures are among the most striking reminders of the island's past. Eritrean sources describe hundreds of ancient wells on the island, alongside archaeological remains, inscriptions, and historic tombstones. Some of these water systems were designed to collect and preserve scarce freshwater. That tells us something important. People were not simply passing through these islands. Communities lived here. They developed ways to survive in an environment where freshwater was extremely limited. The archaeological landscape of Dahlak Kabir includes ancient settlements, Islamic inscriptions, and a historic necropolis. The island's ruins therefore tell a story that goes far beyond beaches and coral reefs. They reveal a society connected to one of the world's most important maritime regions. At different points in history, the Dahlak Islands became more than a place for fishermen and sailors. They became a political center. Historical accounts describe the emergence of a Dahlak Sultanate, which existed for centuries during the medieval period. The islands occupied a strategic position between the African mainland and Arabia. Ships moving through the Red Sea passed near them. Merchants traded across the region. And political power on the islands was connected to the wider history of the Red Sea. The remains of the old necropolis on Dahlak Kabir provide a physical reminder of this period. Hundreds of funerary stelae and inscriptions have helped researchers understand the Islamic history of the islands. But Dahlak's importance would eventually decline as trade routes and political powers changed. The arrival of new maritime powers in the Red Sea transformed the region. And the islands entered another chapter of their history. By the 16th century, the Red Sea had become a contested space involving regional and international powers. The Ottoman Empire expanded its influence along the coast. Later, Egypt became involved in the region. And in the 19th century, Italian colonial expansion reached Eritrea. The Dahlak Islands were drawn into these changing political realities. During Italian rule, the islands were used for fishing and other activities. One of the darkest chapters came on Nokra, an island in the archipelago. The Italians established a prison there. The history of the prison remains part of the difficult legacy of the colonial period. The islands were no longer simply a center of trade and fishing. They had also become strategically important, and their strategic value would become even more significant during the 20th century. During the Eritrean armed struggle for independence, the Dahlak Islands became part of the wider conflict. Their location made them strategically important. Military facilities were established on some islands. Naval operations took place in the surrounding waters. And the archipelago was no longer a remote paradise disconnected from politics. It became part of a war that eventually transformed the entire region. When Eritrean forces captured Massawa in 1990, Ethiopian military and naval positions in the area were abandoned. After Eritrea achieved independence in 1993, the Dahlak Islands became part of the newly independent Eritrean state. Today, the military history remains visible in parts of the archipelago. But the islands are once again being viewed for what they offer beyond strategic geography: their nature, their history, and their potential. Despite the enormous size of the archipelago, only a small number of islands are permanently inhabited. The communities that live here have developed a way of life closely connected to the sea. Fishing remains central. The ocean provides food. It provides income. And it connects the islanders to Massawa and the mainland. Dahlak Kabir is home to a small fishing community, with local livelihoods historically connected to fishing and marine resources. The islands also have their own cultural identity. The Dahlak language, spoken by island communities, reflects the unique history of people who have lived at the crossroads of Africa and Arabia. Life here is not easy. Freshwater is scarce. The climate is harsh. Transport depends heavily on the sea, and access to services can be difficult. But that isolation is also part of what has preserved the island's character. Today, one question hangs over the Dahlak Archipelago. Could these islands become one of the Red Sea's great tourism destinations? The potential is obvious. Beautiful beaches, clear water, coral reefs, marine wildlife, ancient archaeological sites, traditional communities, and an extraordinary sense of isolation. Tourism assessments have found substantial potential for sustainable tourism development in Marsawa and the Dahlak Archipelago, including opportunities linked to natural and cultural heritage. But development would have to be carefully managed. Because the same thing that makes Dahlak attractive to tourists, its isolation, could be destroyed by uncontrolled tourism. Large resorts could put pressure on freshwater supplies. Boats and divers could damage coral reefs. Waste could threaten beaches and marine habitats. And rapid development could disrupt traditional communities. For Dahlak, the question should therefore not simply be, how many tourists can come? It should be, how can tourism grow without destroying what makes the island special? Ecotourism, small-scale accommodation, responsible diving, local fishing and cultural experiences, and strong conservation measures could offer a different model. A model where the natural environment is not an obstacle to tourism, but the reason people come. The Dahlak Islands are a rare combination of natural beauty and human history, but their future is not guaranteed. Climate change is putting pressure on coral reefs around the world. Marine ecosystems face pollution and overfishing, and economic development can create new pressures on fragile islands. At the same time, the region's strategic importance continues to grow. The Red Sea is one of the world's most important maritime corridors, and Eritrea sits along one of its longest coastlines. The challenge will be balancing economic opportunity with environmental protection. If managed carefully, Dahlak could become a major destination for responsible tourism and marine research. If development is poorly planned, the very qualities that make the islands extraordinary could disappear. For centuries, the Dahlak Islands have stood at the crossroads of Africa and the Red Sea. They have been a trading center, a pearl fishing ground, a home to island communities, a political center, a military outpost, and, today, a place of extraordinary natural beauty. Beneath the crystal-clear waters are coral reefs and marine habitats. On the islands are ancient wells, tombstones, and ruins. And around them are communities whose lives remain closely connected to the sea. Perhaps that is what makes Dahlak so fascinating. It is not simply an untouched paradise. It is a place where nature and history exist side by side. The question now is what happens next. Can Eritrea share the beauty of Dahlak with the world while protecting the environment and the communities that call these islands home? If it can, the Dahlak Archipelago could become one of the most remarkable destinations in the Red Sea, not because it becomes another mass tourism resort, but because it remains something increasingly rare. A place where the sea, history, and nature still belong together. Have you ever heard of the Dahlak Islands? Would you visit this hidden corner of the Red Sea if you had the opportunity? Tell us what you think in the comments. And if you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe for more stories about Ethiopia, Eritrea, and the wider Horn of Africa. Thanks for watching.